friends out there in YouTube land, we're getting ready to talk about YoloBox video streaming settings. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. We're talking about these YoloBox settings. We'll chat about them so that we can talk about what is live streaming. Specifically, why does live streaming sometimes look really great and then other times look not so great? I want to talk about this and preface this because sometimes people think it's the problem of YoloBox. In fact, that's the question I got on my recent video I want to share with you. It's a YoloBox Mini, as you can see right here. And I got a question down here. Hey, why is it that it's never talked about improving the quality of the streamed and recorded image? You know, and I think that's a pretty good question. You know, people ask and they want to know, how come YoloBox doesn't have better video quality? And the reality is that YoloBox actually does have an exceptional video quality specification built right into it. It streams at up to 8,000 bits per second, which is 8 megabits per second, at up to 60 frames per second on two models and 30 frames per second on another model. And it streams this in 1080p, 720, vertical, 480, horizontal, whichever you want. That's the video specification. It also has a spec for the audio that I don't recall right this exact moment. Now, the reason that that's important is because that video spec is exactly what it can be. It is simply ones and zeros. It doesn't get any better. It doesn't technically get any worse. So it's a simple video specification. Let's compare that to something like, here's an A7 II, right? The video specification on this A7 II, this 7-year-old, 8-year-old camera, is 50 megabits per second internal record rate on its low setting and up to 100 megabits per second on its internal setting. Now, this means that it has the XAVC-S codec and it has AVC HD codecs, so there are different codecs built into it. Each codec has a different type of compression. The compression is determined by the codec itself, and the codec's compression will determine the bit rate that you get through. The higher the bit rate, the better the quality of the video. That means that this camera, which is 6 or 8 years old, at the best can record at a bit rate that's about 12 times higher than YoloBox can stream. And at its standard recording rate for internal recording, not its high def rate, it records at the exact same resolution as YoloBox can record internally. YoloBox itself will record internally at 10 kilobits per, at 50,000 kilobits per second, which is 50 megabits per second. The standard recording bit rate on this is 50 megabits per second. In the high def mode, you can do 100. So this still has twice a recording bit rate. The difference is this camera cannot stream, whereas YoloBox is trying to stream directly to the internet so that people can watch live. That requires a completely different kind of compression. So the first part of the question, when people say, hey, how come we don't talk about the video quality resolution of YoloBox? If you're comparing a live stream to a cinema camera recording in 4K that was previously recorded and uploaded to YouTube that you were just watching back, then the question was wrong in the first place. Your basis for understanding meant that you don't have a good foundation of what live streaming is, right? Live streaming is spur of the moment, in real time, with extremely low latency, sharing of a photo, a video image, and sound image. And those types of signals are, in order to share them as live as you possibly can, they are done at a different bit rate. So for YoloBox, the live stream encoding rate that can fit on top of your camera, remember, I can actually take this, put YoloBox on top of this A7 II, and I can go to the beach and live stream from my camera. I can go to the mountains and live stream from my camera. I can do it from the top of the building over there. I can do it at the pool. That's not something you're going to do when you put this computer on top of your camera. Let's talk about one other system. We could live stream with our computer as well. And there are different systems. You've got Teradek, you've got bonded systems for different internet connections. We're not going to talk about internet connection right this second. Right now, I'm just letting you know that I am aware, just like you should be, that, and I've used extensively OBS and XSplit. I prefer OBS, to be quite honest with you, to XSplit. To both of those, I prefer YoloBox. There's just no question YoloBox works for me. However, when we're talking about this other software, even if you were going to put a computer on top of your camera, remember YoloBox is on top of your camera. The computer's not going on top of your camera. You're going to have to be on location with a dedicated workstation, which means then you're going to need to use your wireless video transmitters to send the signal from your camera back to your computer, right? So that your computer can then connect to the internet through your internet connection device, your Wi-Fi hotspot, Ethernet, or whatever. YoloBox can connect all those ways as well. So although you would be able to use something like OBS and set up complex scenes and have access to, 50,000 kilobits or 50 megabits per second upload on a 4K stream setting and things like that, you would only be able to do that on location if your internet that you were using on location, like at the mountain or at the pool or at the beach, supported it. The likelihood that you're going to be at the ocean side recording a wedding or at a mountainside recording a funeral or doing anything in between with anything other than a wireless connection, bonded, of course, is an option, but a wireless connection, you're not going to be out at a graveside, right, doing a funeral with Wi-Fi. It's not happening. I'm telling you right now, the very, very, very few churches have it, and most gravesides are somewhere else. So again, having the ability to not have to have a workstation like a computer and everything and take YoloBox and put it on top of your camera is for me the better option. Okay, in studio, yes. If you're in studio, maybe you want. I mean, I could see where being able to stream on YoloBox at a higher bit rate would be very important for in-studio work, right? I would like to stream at 50,000 kilobits or 50 megabits per second in 4K if I wanted to. YoloBox doesn't support that. OBS and XSplit does. But my home internet connection, I can only get a max of about 15 to 20 megabits per second upload. So I'm still capped. Even if I could stream, even if I wanted to stream using OBS at 40,000 kilobits per second, at 40 megabits per second upload, my internet at the home doesn't support it. So again, when we ask that question, we have to have a frame of reference. That's what I'm trying to say. When you ask the question, hey, how come we don't talk about video quality? YoloBox has a specification that's built into it. It does not deviate from that specification. It achieves that specification, that internet, that live stream specification, a couple different ways, through constant quality, constant bit rate, and variable bit rate encoding modes. We'll talk about those in a minute. But the reality is that in the long run, when you look at YoloBox, YoloBox has a specification, and that for what it does, it can stream up to the 8,000 kilobits per second, 8 megabits per second, up to 60 frames per second without issue. As long as you have the internet connection, as long as your encoding is set up correctly and optimized for that, then you can stream that. That's not a question. Now, I do have a couple of things I want to say. This is a live stream, so it's happening live. I haven't seen any, actually a bunch of comments have come through. I'll get to your comments later. I'll answer your questions at the end of this, but I also want to let you know that this isn't sponsored by YoloBox. I'm sharing this information with you to help you so that you can learn more about YoloBox and I can be a benefit to you. If you know more about this and you have a better understanding of it than I do, then please answer questions down in the comments below and help others. If you don't know more of this and then you think you do and you start answering wild questions, I'm going to delete those questions because or those answers, because I really only want good information being spread here. Okay, how will we determine that? Man, if you say something crazy in the comments about what works with what, we'll know. In any event, I just want good information to be spread. That being said, if you find any of this information helpful, please don't forget to use the Amazon links down below. Useless plug over. Okay, now that we got that, I've actually wanted to take this a little bit further. So I'm coming over here and I want you to see this. This setting that's here right now is very important because this is YouTube's help center for choosing live encoder settings and bit rates. And this is very important, okay? Many people ask the questions about how to live stream and everything. And YoloBox makes it so simple. I'm going to switch back for a second. YoloBox makes it so simple. It really is. Log into your YouTube, log into your Facebook, log into your Twitter. It makes it so simple with one-click login, we forget that there's actually a lot of resources out there. And before we sit back and start looking, new users generally just post a question on the pages, on the YoloBox forums or wherever, and then they get frustrated. Now, questions don't bother me. You got a question, you answer the question 1,000 times. You don't know how to use Control-Find, Control-F, and find an answer on a forum and search. That's fine. Someone will answer your question. I've given up on answering 1,000 of the more common basic questions because I've done 100 videos that are on the YoloBox forum. If you search for me or anybody else that's out there, you'd find the information that you wanted. That being said, this is a little bit more technical. So I understand that you may not have seen this, but the first thing you want to do is when you're understanding technology is check it out and learn it. Now, YoloBox is set up to automatically get you up and running in HD streaming. So the box is set up by default to encode at 3,000 kilobits per second at constant quality at 30 frames per second, which is YouTube's North American preferred standard. Over in Europe, it's 25 frames per second. Okay, both of those are important because YouTube can very easily create a duplex signal. It can just can make it a 60 frames per second video if it wants to, or it can interpolate that footage. And 25 to 50 or 30 to 60 is a simple interpolation for YouTube's computers. But this information right here, let's go back to it, is important, right? When we look at this info, this tells you everything you need to know about your streaming resolutions, okay? So YoloBox streams at 1080p at 60 frames a second. When we look right here, it recommends streaming at 1080p at 60 frames per second, a minimum of 4,500 kilobits per second. Let me come back. So YoloBox should stream at 4,500 kilobits per second minimum to have a good YouTube specification live stream between 4,500 and 9,000. That reference range is important because more than 9,000 kilobits per second, 9 megabits per second, or more than the high-end range that YouTube is posting, and you'll see your law of diminishing returns. You won't really see a lot of return in resolution and clarity based on the amount of additional bit rate that you would be able to send. So YoloBox will send 8 megabits per second up, 8,000 kilobits per second. That's pretty much at the top range spec for YouTube. And I have found that throughout the years, YoloLive, the company, has done a great job of integrating with YoloBox and bringing it to us and constantly updating. But they have done a great job of making sure that they maintain the YouTube specification. And this is pretty much the specification for all the video on the internet. Now, for those of you that don't stream in 60 frames a second, we come down here to just straight up 1080. When we look at straight up 1080, that's 3,000 to 6,000 kilobits per second. Let me highlight that for you. The reason YoloBox out of the box streams at 3,000 kilobits per second, encodes I should say, is because that's the base resolution for 1080p video, high definition video, that YouTube sets as a specification. This means that when you jump out of the box, you turn YoloBox on, you connect it to Twitch or whatever, stream at 720 versus 1080. But let me first say this. For me, I do not stream weddings at 3,000 kilobits per second. Let me say there, and then after everyone gets there. The reason is the network will be slower because more devices are accessing the network when they show up. And I have to keep that in mind. For me, usually what I do is I make sure that I do my network test with everybody there, and then I can use that network test to take away. If I see that I usually keep 50 to, depending on what's there, 50 to 75% of the network load is what I try to use. So if the network load is 10 megabits per second upload, I know that if I was using 50% of that for my upload of video, that would be 5 megabits, 5,000 kilobits, and 75% of that would be 7.5 megabits, 700 kilobits. And YoloBox can do both of them. It can do up to 8,000 kilobits. Okay, once we get our network test done, we'll be able to determine what kind of encoding settings that we want to use. And when we do that, we need to talk about the encoding settings right here. Now, I'm just showing you on YoloBox Mini. I know you can't see it very well, but the encoding settings, if you're following along, you've got CBR, constant bit rate, CQ, constant quality, and VBR, variable bit rate. Constant bit rate is going to do exactly like I said earlier. It's going to truncate and make sure that the encoder is sending to the network everything that you've asked it to send. 8,000 kilobits per second at 30 frames a second. That's what the encoder is going to do. Whether or not the network can support that is a completely different question. You can have stutters and drop frames and pixelated video and fog and stuff like that because the network can't support what you're trying to send. The encoder is trying to send, it doesn't get that handshake, and so it buffers, and the network buffers, and then you have a problem. But pretending everything was fine, it sends the constant bit rate, 5,000 kilobits per second, at the constant frame rate, 30 frames per second, at your audio sample rate, which we don't set in YoloBox, but it's an AAC sample rate. So it goes out there, boom, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. Now, we have another one. Constant bit rate is great when you have a secure internet connection. But there are two interesting ways to handle a weak internet connection. YoloBox gives us both of them. Constant quality, which is one of their creations, and then variable bit rate, which is an industry standard. Variable bit rate is going to do exactly what you think it does. It's going to vary the bit rate, not the frame rate, in order to not chunk out on the encoding. The reason it would chunk out on the encoding is because the network can't support receiving all of the information that's being sent from YoloBox, from the encoder. So it will vary the bit rate based on the moment-to-moment internet settings that it is experiencing, and with the idea of throttling the bit rate in order to allow the frame rate to remain constant and the frame size to remain constant. This is actually a really great thing to use when you're in very low internet connectivity area, like remote locations. But what you could notice from something like this is what's called low bit rate or low density fog. That's where the image looks hazy. And it's hazy because the bit rate is so low, there's not enough luma or chroma, there's just not enough encoding information that's being sent in order for the encoder on YouTube side to put it all back together and create a complete image. That causes some haze, it can cause pixelation and other things. If you're trying to choose between constant bit rate or variable bit rate in 1080p and you're doing some tests, you need to stop immediately and switch over to 720. If you're at 1080p trying to do 3,000 kilobits per second, drop down to 2,000 kilobits per second, 720. Call it a day. Do your tests there. You will have much better constant video at 720, 2,000 kilobits than 1080 variable bit rate in the vast majority of your situations. All right, so we've talked about constant bit rate. We've talked about variable bit rate. There is one in the middle that's constant quality. Now, what constant quality is going to do is it's going to try to vary your bit rate and your frame rate in order to give you the best match between both. And it's going to do one other thing. Much like JPEG compression, it's going to look at the parts of the scene that don't change. For example, this area back here doesn't change, this black doesn't change. Constant quality will look at that, recognize that that doesn't change, and then it will just encode a special compression to tell the encoder on the other end to just use this algorithm to pop that up. So it's almost like it's not sending bits. And by doing that, it will save bit rate, but it could also maintain quality by telling the encoder on the other end to just grab that bit that it used in that last frame and uncode from there, or decode from there. That costs less time and bit rates to the encoder than it would to just send variable or send complete. So it's kind of an in-between of both of them. So it could also vary the frame rate. When might it vary the frame rate? Let's say you're at the ocean and there's no one on the beach, but there's an arbor, which is a place where people get married, like two wooden posts. There's a pastor, and then there's people sitting. The beach, the ocean is constantly moving. So there's nothing solid in the background that's not moving that would not work well with the constant quality. So it would then vary, instead of the bit rate, it would vary the frame rate, because each frame would be different because the waves constantly move, as opposed to like a blank wall. And that's how it would adjust. So that's how it acts in two separate situations, either varying the bit rate or varying the frame rate. In any event, the best one to use when possible will always be CBR, the constant bit rate. Now, right now you're looking and it says that we can go up to 50,000 kilobits per second, which is 50 megabits per second. This is because it's just in monitor mode. In monitor mode, you can record at 50,000 kilobits per second. And if you're recording on YoloBox, then you will see that specification. I don't see any particular difference in quality when I've done my testing in the past between internally recorded videos on a good SD card as compared to something on my camera when I'm recording at the same bit rates. If I choose to record, like on this camera that I'm recording on right here, if I choose to record at Apple ProRes, yeah, of course I'm going to see a difference. It's 100 times the quality. It just is. Apple ProRes RAW, Apple ProRes HQ, it's huge. At 200 megabits per second, at 400 megabits per second, it's 8 times, this camera is 8 times the quality of the internal recording here. That's simply a matter of specification. If they were recorded at the same, using the same camera input between them, I see very minimal to no loss in quality in my testing, which is why I use YoloBox. And guys, you've seen my live streams. They look beautiful. My live streams are on point. It's because I understand these things. Now, we've done a whole lot of talking about all of this. I want to see if there are any questions or comments that are in there. I see a couple of them that are right here. Mary, she says, hi, Robert. Would you have any advice on internet connection for live streaming? Yeah, actually, I do have some advice like that. There are different devices with things called bonded internet connections that actually use 2 different SIM cards, bring them together in that device in order to stream. It gives you a more reliable connection and a much faster connection. The reality is many of those devices are in the professional, past the prosumer range, and they still use SIM card technology. For me, I do exactly what we've talked about. When I'm in an area, I do my test, and I make sure that I am using the data and the frame size that matches my environment. In all of my contracts, I talk with my brides and grooms. I let them know, and my funerals and stuff like that, I let them know that I will stream in this way. These are the parameters. I've got a whole sheet about it. It's a thing, right? Because it's a thing. But I do one thing that's very important. I've never had to return anyone's money because of a bad product, because I have a process. My team and I have a process called ABR. Always be recording, which means memory cards are cheap, man. If I'm live streaming, the record button is pressed, with the exception of right now. I'm in my studio. I have no desire. It's not a contract. But when I'm on a paid gig, it's ABR. Always be recording. And it's simple. If the live stream goes down because of a data-starved network, we've already talked that YoloBox is competent. It's not going to chug out because of YoloBox, right? I mean, you may have problems with YoloBox like any other equipment, but YoloBox is the hub. It's not the spoke that's actually going out there touching the wheel or the internet, which is the road. It's just the hub that's transferring your camera images and video to the internet. So it's not where the rubber meets the road. It's really the hub. It's in between everything. So YoloBox isn't going to chunk out. It's not going to have a problem. If something chunks out, it's going to be the internet connection. That could be because you didn't set it properly, or because the internet connection changed while you were out there. The environmental options changed. Everything changed. Storm could roll in. Something could go down. Who knows? Handshake from tower to tower could change. In those instances, ABR saves you, because you can check out the video from your camera, and now you've got the wedding live stream that you can just edit into a real quick video and give to the bride and groom. So that's what I do. I've got another one also from Mary. Mary, thanks for your next question. Appreciate it. Also, when I live stream weddings or events on Facebook, it always blocks my live stream because of music and copyright. Mary, this is a great question. I'm going to help you with that. The music is out of my control, but how can I avoid this from blocking my live stream? Okay. This is a great one, Mary. I'm real glad that you asked that. You need to have, first of all, stop streaming on Facebook. You will never be able to stream copywritten content on Facebook as far as today is concerned with the current Facebook rules on copy protection. It won't happen. So stop. In fact, don't even offer it. It's not something that I would suggest that you offer. What you can do is share on Facebook the link to your YouTube live stream. Then Facebook does nothing to it because it just plays on an external link. So that's how you get around it. but live streaming copywritten music to Facebook is a no-go. Now, how do you live stream to YouTube? It's real simple. I do it all the time with copywritten content music. Please go through my, go to my Robert Ham Photography website. Check out my live streams that are up there on the wedding investment page. You'll see how much I charge. Might be a great barrier or great barometer for you to know how much you should charge. If you're charging more than me and getting it, please email me. So I'd like to know your techniques. If you've got anything to share, I would like to know. But from what you see over there, you'll hear copywritten music and you won't see any of it taken down. How do I do it? I have a YouTube partnership. It's that simple. I have a YouTube partnership. They cost a lot of money. $300. That's free with an F. $300. The problem is they don't cost money, they cost time. You have to work for it. A YouTube partnership is an agreement to monetize your content on YouTube. That's all it is. And there are several specifications about, I'm not going to go into all that, about how much you get paid and who gets to take what, and what type of content can be monetized and what type of content cannot be monetized. More importantly, the content that I cannot monetize, YouTube will automatically monetize on behalf of the copyright owner. This is great. So I make money with videos like this on YouTube. People will watch this and, I'll get $10 for every 1,000 views, basically is what it comes out to. Maybe it's $8 or $9. Okay, so 10,000 views, $90, $100, right? Okay, good to go. So that's it. On a wedding video, I might have 300 views, 500 views, 1,000 views in a year. I don't make any money off of that. But on a wedding live stream, that's what I was talking about when I said wedding video, I'm going to charge $1,500 for a live stream, period. 2 cameras, $1,000, $500 and $500, plus an intro, $250, plus an outro, $250. There's $1,500 right there. You want aerial, another $1,000. Bingo. You see that? So I get my money on the front end. Now what happens? They go down. I've mic'd everybody. I've mic'd the violinist. I've mic'd the DJ that's playing the music. I've mic'd the pastors. I've mic'd everybody. So that 1,000 Years by Christina Pereri or whatever her name is, good song, right? But it comes on, right? And then Adam Sandler's I Only Want to Be With You. I played that at a wedding the other day. I actually played it. Chris West Entertainment. It's not up here right now. Go figure. I provide DJ services and stuff too with live streams because I can live stream my copywritten music. So I played that the other day. It's not taken down at all because YouTube will monetize that playback and give the money to the copyright owner. And in order to do that, my partnership states that they'll keep the music, they'll keep the video up, right? But they will take the profits and the proceeds from the video advertising. Great. Which means, at most, what someone might see on top of their wedding video that is a live stream is a bumper ad from YouTube. Maybe. That's not a big thing to deal with. You might think it is. You might say, how could anybody, people are going to say, how could we do this? Why would we put up this type of thing or that type of thing? And the real answer is, it doesn't matter. It is a live stream video. It's on YouTube. People are used to it. No big deal. And it doesn't usually play. It might play once or twice. The second thing is I'm already ABR. I've always been recording. So I will take that live stream. I usually use the recording that I did on YoloBox, and I just stitch them together. I have it set to 10-minute drops between them. I stitch them together and put it in their download folder on my website so they get a download. So there's no real issue there. Okay, so that's it. There's a couple more questions, but I think we're going to just let that be for right now. I want to thank everyone for watching. If you did find this content helpful, it's been a minute, don't forget to leave a comment down below, like, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.